What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams with the distance. I'm here to give you my number 4 middleweight for my top 5 for this week. My number 5 was Stanley Ketchel, and my number 4 is today. Now, in boxing history, I think sometimes the London Prize fighters who fought, bare knuckles and stuff, are definitely underrated. You have fighters like John L. Sullivan, Tom Molyneux, Kid McCoy, Tommy Ryan. And that's just to name a few. But one of these bare knuckle fighters, made my top 4. I believe he's like the second middleweight, second recognized middleweight champion, and that's definitely Bob Fitzsimmons, the first ever 3 division world champion, won a middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight championship. But at middleweight, he was untouchable. He's one of the hardest punches in history. Now, with the London Prize rules, or bare knuckle boxing, as it's called, with those rules, the fighters didn't have any gloves. So, for a good 15, possibly even 20 rounds, some of these fights went over 30 rounds. Fighters were taking all kinds of heavy blows through bare exposed fists. They didn't have, at this time, they didn't have any gloves. They're fighting, bare knuckles, bare hands, this, that, and the other. And Bob Fitzsimmons was, one of the hardest punchers at middleweight. He pretty much, he cleaned out middleweight, the middleweight division. He fought who was there. But then again, at the same time, you have fighters who were in the division, but some of these fights were even exhibitions because at this time, and this is one of the reasons that some of these fighters have so many contests, because they fought a lot of exhibition bouts, which fighters don't really do these days. They don't fight that many exhibitions. But Bob Fitzsimmons fought a lot of exhibition bouts, and early in his career, he lost to one fighter, and he ended up, after that fight, ended up with a few no contests or no decisions with this fighter, and so forth and so on. He had like 15 no contests and like 5 draws and 8 losses. But at the same time, he was, he was still one of the greatest middleweights of all time. But he defeated who many consider the first ever middleweight champion, and that was Jack Dempsey. And this is not the Jack Dempsey who's the heavyweight champion. This is like the middleweight Jack Dempsey, John Edward Kelly, I believe his name was, and he defeated him in by a 13th round knockout, I believe. I believe it was a knockout in the 13th round, or a stoppage or something like that. But he knocked him down a few times, and before that, Dempsey went about 32 rounds with another fighter until he got knocked out, and then Fitzsimmons knocked him out in 13. So that was a big accomplishment. This happened in, I believe, January of 1891. When he knocked out Dempsey and became the middleweight champion of the world, and he held that belt for, I think he held it for about 3 years. I believe he held it for about 3 or 4 years, and he vacated it to move up to heavyweight and fought James Corbett. James Corbett, even fought Jack Johnson. He ended up becoming the heavyweight champion of the world, and he moved down. He fought Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, and fighters like Bill Lang, I believe, was his last matchup. I believe it was Bill Lang, but I could be wrong. But he moved up. He fought some quality heavyweights. He fought some good light heavyweights. But at the same time, he cleaned out the middleweight division, and there was a strong champion following Bob Fitzsimmons, and that was Tommy Ryan. But Tommy Ryan, a lot of people debate. He had like a 9-year reign as the middleweight champion. I believe he was the second fighter. I think he's the first fighter to ever win a welterweight championship and then a middleweight. But he was pretty much fighting. He was cleaning out Bob Fitzsimmons' division pretty much. But he was fighting, it's like this, I believe Fitzsimmons would have defeated Kid McCoy. And I believe he would have had he would have had a close fight with. I think he would have had a close win against Tommy Ryan. Even though Tommy Ryan did, I believe, train James J. Jeffries in his matchup against Fitzsimmons, and Jeffries beat him. But then again, at the same time, Tommy Ryan was a strategist. But you can't take that. You can't take anything away from Bob Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons, is one. Even though there's not many televised matchups, you could tell. Just looking at his matchups, he used to swing for the fences. He swung for the fences in his matchups. Just look at the Corbett fight. It's on YouTube. He swung for the fences, and he did come up short a few times in his career. But at the same time, you got to give it to him. You got to give it to him because he's the first ever middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight champion. First on fire to hold all three of those titles. Sometime in his career, wasn't accomplished until Roy Jones Jr. did it. I believe like 100 years later, 99 years later, most likely. But it was never accomplished. It hadn't been accomplished until Roy Jones Jr. did it, and possibly James Toney's on his way to doing it. We'll never know with James Toney. I hope though. But anyway, my number 4 is Bob Fitzsimmons, and that's and pretty much that's because I'm gonna say it's not only because he was a 3 division champion, but he's a fighter that could have stayed at middleweight and dominated it and cleaned out the division, if he wanted to. But he moved up, he made history, fought at heavyweight. Never moved up in weight that much, but I don't think he fought past 176 pounds, but. Anyway, my number 4 is Bob Fitzsimmons. Be sure to check out number 3 tomorrow. But anyway, that was Distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.